Within our chapter on miscellaneous TLS topics, we are now in the fifth and last lesson of a mini-series of 5 covering various significant attacks that occurred on TLS. In this fifth and last lesson of the mini-series on TLS attacks, we will now have a look at the famous Heartbleed vulnerability uncovered in the year 2014. As a contrast to the other attacks on TLS that we had a look at over the course of the previous lessons, Heartbleed was now not a vulnerability of the TLS protocol itself or any of the ciphers used within TLS, but Heartbleed was a bug within the OpenSSL implementation of the TLS Heartbeat extension. Essentially, TLS heartbeats within a TLS connection give a client regular assurance that the server is still alive. For this, the client regularly sends the server a heartbeat request containing a payload. The server's task is then to respond to the client with a heartbeat response message containing the payload that was sent by the client to the server within the heartbeat request message. OpenSSL, in its implementation of this heartbeat extension, now failed to verify the server's memory bounds where the payload received by the client was residing, and as such was then vulnerable to not just simply send the payload back to the client, but potentially also memory data adjacent to the payload. XKCD does a quite good job at explaining this. With the Heartbleed bug, Alice, as the client, can send the server a heartbeat request message with the 3-letter payload hat, but with Alice maliciously indicating that the length of the payload is 500 letters instead of just 3 letters. The server with the Heartbleed bug then receives this heartbeat request message of Alice and puts the 3-letter payload hat into its memory. To reply with the heartbeat response message, the server then checks the indicated payload length and sees that the indicated payload length was 500 letters, even though the real payload was just the 3-letter payload hat. Due to the failed memory bounds verifications, the server then reads 500 letters from its memory, starting at the payload hat, but also taking 497 letters from the memory adjacent to the payload. The heartbeat response message sent by the server and received by Alice then contains the 500 letters read from the server's memory, which obviously now leaked data from the server that was never intended to be read by Alice. Heartbleed was now an easy to fix bug, and OpenSSL was patched in 2014. As already mentioned, this is now not a vulnerability of the TLS protocol itself or any of the ciphers used within TLS, but a software bug. To mitigate risks related to software bugs, it's important to keep an inventory of software running on your systems, to subscribe to vulnerability feeds, and to have patching processes in place to patch your systems once critical vulnerabilities within installed software emerge.